Just some important, I think this group, and maybe I can get some questions started and then I can pass it around because it's always wonderful to sort of see the body of work and then sort of look for certain kinds of themes that are developing. Especially in this group, there's been a lot of, in terms of very creative making and engaging in the process of making and how certain details like, excuse me, the manufacturing process begins to really be sort of embraced in the forming and the ideation process. Could you talk a little bit about, I know there was, you were made familiar with that manufacturing process kind of early on, but how did that start playing into how you were actually then starting to sort of conceive the shapes and the forms?
I can start briefly on that. I mean, I think it is a really interesting theme. Just reflecting on the presentations this morning, I mean, our process was a kind of more conventional extrusion and a conventional hanging system, and then manipulation, kind of mid-production. Interesting to think about, for example, the Pelli Clarke design and whether that, whether an extruded process would work for that, right? I think it's a fascinating thought. And then the also kind of mid-production forming on UNStudio, and then the production processes involved there. I think it's a really interesting theme that kind of, it does tie all of our work together. I think for us, just to kind of reinforce that point, I think we were interested in being selective about layering in that secondary process. I think we're conscious of the kind of steps and time involved with that, and approached our kind of overall design idea, with an intent to selectively use this these kind of 4-axis wire cut tiles to add detail and add resolution and decoration in select areas. I think that thinking about production and thinking about the steps that it takes to make this was definitely part of our thinking.
Yeah, I'd actually like to follow that, because when we were relooking at the modules and trying to really facilitate the whole process, we did think about extruding the seat. But then that also limited us in certain ways, because that arch that we have in the bottom of the seat wasn't really possible if we were to extrude it. And we thought that that was really an important feature to retain. So really learning about all of the different methodologies in getting these iterations possible also really informed the decisions that we took at the end of the day.
Yeah, the fabrication process was something that we started looking at really early on, because we saw a tie-in between how we can improve the performance of our facade system by maximizing and pushing further than could currently be done, the limits of the fabrication process, specifically for the extrusion for us, and then tying that into how we developed the form after the extrusion. So for us, that was integral in pushing that in order to push performance.
Yeah, it's a constant feedback loop as well. You analyze, design, modify, analyze, design, modify, and of course, the more time we have, the more robust the product is. But I think we were quite happy with the result.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just one last point on ours. For years, I've wanted to get my hands on that 4-axis wire cutter and do all kinds of funky shapes, but bizarrely, we went the opposite, and the whole idea was to use a single, how did you put it, Mitch? A single die. Just keeping it as simple as possible, utilitarian, low cost. So, yeah, the opposite of what I've always wanted to do. It's funny how life turns out.
I want to see if you all have any questions for the panel, for the group. Yeah, I am blinded by the column.
Hi again. My question is more, as we are on a campus, for those who are, students that are either here or watching this, who are interested in or beginning a career related to architectural ceramics specifically, based off of your experiences and where each of you are in your careers, what would be your biggest piece of advice or suggestion to those individuals?
So I started as an architecture student and transitioned into a 10-year career in manufacturing for reasons that we won't discuss. But my first step was honestly to ask a professor. I'd been building things on my own, so the first step is to do it. If you're interested in terracotta, don't ask, don't wait, start. I started to build things on my own. I started to get some recognition for that. I started to feel pretty good about it. And I went to a professor and I said, I don't think I want to work in architecture. I want to build stuff. So what do I do? And he told me, you got to work for this one guy. And then I kind of stopped at that guy's doorstep and I said, I'm not really going to leave until you let me work for you. And 10 years later, I'm back in the profession. I'm loving it. And I still get the benefit of all that knowledge from 10 years in manufacturing.
Just getting hands on material, like you said, and making stuff is so important. I've been to so many factories now, and every time I see a factory, I see something new, I learn something new. But I mean, this has been incredible trying to actually build this wall. It's been. Yeah, I think I speak for all my team to say how damn difficult it was. So much so that you cannot. I get really upset when you go into offices and I just see people working on Rhino or whatever, and you'd learn so much more if you go into somewhere like us. But like maybe we've got a really good workshop and people actually making stuff. It's the only way.
Yeah, I mean, reiterating what we've heard, it's just about jumping in, trying things, don't be afraid to, keep asking questions, really understanding the fabrication process is important to understand where you run up to where the limits are. And then, once you're told that you can't do something, start to question why, and that's how you start to move the needle forward a little bit. So be my advice.
Yeah, actually, in compliments to the organization, because it's only in events like this where you can really start to push the limits, because the realities of the profession are very much client and economy driven. So when we have a higher budget, we can use terracotta, but oftentimes that's not the case. So really, forums like this are fantastic to really explore these moments. Yeah.
And I'd also like to add, I mean, visiting a facility, also visiting and seeing the product for yourself, that was tremendous for me. For instance, this was my first ACAW, and just walking the plant was awesome, because you really get a sense to the methodologies and the differences between them. So.
Hi again. Thank you all. That was really enlightening. I want to kind of piggyback on that question. And thank you for that question. I couldn't see who asked it, but I think a lot of times, so I work in the arts. I'm a ceramic artist and a professor of ceramic arts, but there's a lot of overlap, of course, between arts and engineering and ceramics and material knowledge and science. So I just want to first of all, say, it feels oftentimes that we're very kind of siloed in our lines of study, also in professional arenas between the arts, architecture, engineering, other kind of sciences. And this event is wonderful because it's bringing all of these things together and kind of bringing us into conversation. So what I'd like to ask of you all is in what ways have you found in your careers, or maybe in the professional sphere, of creating those bridges and creating those connections and community and conversations across disciplines?
Happy to start. I think it's critical, the relationships, and it's especially in our profession, which is it spans such a long time. Having these good people, like for us here in UNStudio, Walter P. Moore, it's been amazing and so much fun to collaborate together. But we learn so much just bouncing ideas back and forth, because of course we all think differently and we have all specialized, isolated knowledge. And therefore it's critical to really kind of coalesce and come together so we can actually have a good dialogue and a good relationship that spans quite a long period of time.
I've always sort of said that if you're out to make connections, you're probably not going to do very well. But if you're out to make friends, you'll probably do really well. And if you come from a genuine place of caring and of caring about people, and I hope anyone that I met this week, at me or whatever the right word is, yeah, I mean, there's something about just being friendly and yeah, it's amazing how far it goes.
Well, it's to add to that, this profession is very small. Once you realize that, I mean, you can come across previous coworkers very easily in different types of events. So you really have to be mindful of the connections that you make.
Just want to give a shout out to Amy, who I haven't seen since graduation, but
I was just gonna add quickly. I think this idea of making friends and asking questions, maybe to one of your points earlier, like should also extend to the people who build the buildings, right? The construction managers, the tradespeople, etc. Like there's so much to learn just by talking to the people and finding out what they do every day, what's hard about your design. Like there's just so much to learn from everyone around you, beyond the people at the office, beyond the folks we work with. I think it's just kind of keeping an open mind really and asking questions.
Yeah, yeah, I love the whole be nice thing. That's the world needs that. But architecture is a tough profession as well. I've spoken to a lot of people actually this week talking about some people have had really traumatic experiences who work in certain offices, which we won't mention, and universities. Clearly not this one. But I think the point I was going to make is that it was just actually back to your original question about artists as well. The most enjoyable projects I've worked on have been where art has been integrated into the facade, into the terracotta. Quite often in the built environment is a bunch of pretty mediocre commercial buildings with a sculpture stuck in the plaza kind of thing that seems to have no relationship to anything. Westminster City Council in London have been quite innovative in that they insist, and I don't know if they do this anywhere else, but the art has to be part of the facade. I've worked on a couple of Kelly buildings. I know he was here last year where an artist has been involved to help design the facade, and I've done 3 other projects with other artists where that's been the case, and they've been brilliant. I mean, really technically challenging, but by far the most integrated, and everybody listening to everything. Our founder, Solo Arup, talked about total design and this whole philosophy of just sitting down and everybody's equal, architect, engineer, specialist, and the artist, and everybody gets an equal say and everybody participates and everybody's nice, and that's what makes it all worthwhile.
Well, thank you very much. So a quick applause for everybody here on the stage and the teams.